Brian, good to see you this morning. First, let's get into the numbers real quick because these December or the January numbers came out, and we have a graphic here. The number that came in, $564 million, just above that January projection. You can see on the right hand of your screen there. It's the dark bar is just above the projected lighter bar there. So that's a third month in a row that we've had revenue higher than what they projected.
Good morning, Matt. And that is obviously good news. It's interesting looking back a few months ago when the revenue projections were first starting to not be met, when revenues came in under projection. And you had Democrats and a handful of Republicans, they were acting like the sky was falling. And it's all the fault of school choice, $50 million. It's all the fault of $450 million in tax cuts. We're going to be in trouble. And on the other hand, you had other people, Senator Groh on JFAC, even Governor Little were saying, this isn't the end of the world, just relax. And it turns out that some of the explanations that people had that businesses were adjusting the way they do their taxes, their quarterly taxes and such, and how much they pay and how much they retain, they were doing that in response to the changes in the One Big Beautiful Bill. So it wasn't really the end of the world because, as Representative Tanner has pointed out, we're not in a recession here. This isn't an emergency like it was in 2008, 2009. This is just a kind of an oddity in the way that the money is coming in. However, that said, I think anything that inspires people to cut the budget is a good thing. It's been insane to me watching people wring their hands and tear up over the thought of 3, 4, or 5% budget cuts when the budget for the state as a whole has gone up 50, 60% over the last 5 or 6 years. Just returning to last year's budget or 2 years ago's budget, is it really the end of the world? Is that a draconian cut? Are we cutting into the bone, like some of them say?
Yeah, hardly, especially when you put it into context over the last 4 or 5 years, what we've seen. Okay, so then that's why you and I both were a little taken aback yesterday when Senator Kevin Cook showed up in committee to present this. Let's watch this. It's about a minute.
Is simple. It is not to get rid of House Bill 93 or the parental choice whatsoever. It is simply to say that we need to get a little bit of money out of that as well that we can apply to the bottom line. And so basically what it's doing is, if you remember, the governor did a 3% holdback. JFAC voted to do a 1% holdback for 2026 and a 2% holdback for 2027. So if you add those together for 2026, that would be a 4%, and for 2027, that would be a 5%. And that's all that I'm asking here. Now, the reason why that did not apply to this parental choice bill is because it's a tax credit. JFAC never sees it. It never comes to the general fund. And so this RS is basically saying take out a 4% from the tax credit and a 5% from the tax credit for 2027.
So have you ever seen Republicans say, we got to cut tax credits?
Yeah, he's essentially saying we're going to raise taxes in a roundabout way. And a couple of things there. Like he said, it doesn't go through JFAC because it's not spending. It's a tax cut, which does reduce revenue, but it reduces the expected revenue that they would otherwise have. But it's not spending. They're not spending money. They are allowing people to take money. It's kind of a semantic thing, but there is a difference there. And I don't know where to even start on this. I know Senator Cook was complaining in JFAC the other day about the cuts to launch. The governor actually offered, hey, launch is $80 million appropriated. You can have $10 million of it back to balance the budget. And then so JFAC voted to do that, and then $10 million again next year. But in that case, a lot of that money, as explained by the testifiers in JFAC, was due to students who were awarded grant money for launch and then chose not to go to school that semester, or they went to school but their grades didn't hold up, or for whatever reason they fell below the eligibility threshold. And so that money was then returned by the schools. Remember, it never goes to the people. It goes straight to the schools. It literally is a voucher. That money was returned to then the government. So that's sitting there in the launch account, the in-demand careers fund. And so it's already there. It's not like it's taking money from anybody. On On the flip side, though, like you said, more than 5,000 families have already applied for the parental choice tax credit. And I don't even think we're halfway through the filing period. So there could be a lot more. There's going to be more families who want this than there's money available. So what Senator Cook is trying to do is cut down. He's going to say to several families, $2.5 million worth, do the math on that, how many students that would cover. No, you can't have that because I'm mad that they cut launch.
Right. And the fact that the governor said he wouldn't touch K through 12 funding, and then Cook comes over the top and says, well, actually, we did cut funding. And this was a line of a questioning that Senator Cindy Carlson, who's also on JFAC, brings up. Let's watch this clip.
Probably not going to change any minds here, because I see where I already know, being on JFAC, that we do have to cut. But I'm going to be voting no, and I just wanted to explain why, if there's a motion. This is the first year of implementation of this legislation. We haven't even seen it get off the ground yet, and we're already cutting from it. The man on the second floor said that K through 12 would be left whole, and we haven't really largely touched K through 12. And so that would be why I would be against this. Thank you.
Would you like to respond to that?
I would, thank you. So as Senator Carlson and I both serve on JFAC, and it is true the governor said he did not hold K-12, that he would hold them harmless, that nothing would be taken out of that. But if you dig down, you'll see that that's not quite right. $22 million were reduced from the fiscal 26 related to the support unit adjustments. So that's $22 million. $42 million were reduced from the fiscal year 27 related to support unit adjustments. $30 million was reduced in the governor's rec for the IDL, which was $10 million, and then in virtual programs was $20 million, so a total of $30 million there. So for the grand total, $94 million equates to a 3.5% reduction from the fiscal year 26 appropriation. And so our K through 12 did get hit. And so again, I'm just standing here saying that you give one person a haircut, we should give the other person a haircut. Not that they're opposite, they're both educating our kids. But K-12 was certainly hit, $94 million, and I'm only proposing a 4%, 5%. So, but thank you.
Follow up?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Senator Cook, your numbers are speaking about actions that have not yet taken place in JFAC for the most part. So I believe that we will still have changes in the offing, and your 22 million, that was because of, to clarify, which you just said, support units. There's our support units, we're funding less because we have a lower attendance throughout the state. And I just wanted to clarify that.
What was that? What was that? I mean, right? I mean, she nailed it right there. That's one of the reasons why he's seeing those cuts in there.
It was interesting hearing that in relation to the oral arguments from the tax credit case a few weeks ago, where one of their arguments was that appropriating any money outside of public education takes money away from public education. That's been their narrative. That's been the Democrats' narrative, and a few unfortunate Republicans take that to its logical conclusion. And they would say that the Constitution requires students to not leave the public school system, because if a student leaves the system and goes elsewhere, to homeschool, to private school, to co-op, even just to leave the state, that reduces enrollment. And if enrollment falls enough, then the support unit numbers drop, which means funding drops. So people making choices, families and individuals, free people making choices that politicians or bureaucrats might disagree with, is not an excuse to completely override their rights.
No, exactly. And what they're basically saying is we want these kids in public schools. That way we can keep funding at the current levels and then keep asking for more and more and more. Just that clip in the beginning of the show with Vito Barbieri, where he's like, they asked for $1 billion and we've given them $2 billion and they keep asking for more. Exactly. So it's preposterous. And let's not forget, folks, you're actually saving money per student here. If it costs the state $8,000 to $9,000 or more to educate your child in public school, yet if you take your kid elsewhere and or homeschool or do whatever you want, and you're capped at $5,000, then 5,000 is lower than 8 or 9, right, Brian? Last time I checked, I went to public school.
I went to public schools as well, so I'm pretty sure that's right. But I might have to check with my homeschool friends upstairs.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's kind of the line, and that's kind of the line of questioning here that was kind of preposterous with Senator Zito questioning Senator Cook. Let's watch this.
I just would like to make the comment that the way I understand this is a tax credit, and the families in the state of Idaho are facing close to a 3% inflation rate. I'm not exactly sure how that's adjusted. I've heard as high as 7% inflation rate. So they're already taking a hit. And so if we can, anytime we can give tax dollars back or relieve the tax burden of the people of the state of Idaho and the families so that they can afford to send their kids to school, so they can afford to feed their families, in my mind, I cannot see how that's a bad thing. And so I'm going to vote no, because cutting taxes for our families is never a bad thing. It comes back into the economy. I think that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
May I comment on that?
Sure.
Chairman? I agree with you on that, Senator Zito. But do you realize that 90% of the people in the state of Idaho don't pay the amount of tax credit they get back for this program? In other words, I'm getting back more than what I paid the state in taxes. So where does that extra money come from? It's going to hit the general fund. Okay, so yes, I believe it. Yeah, well, it's my money, so give it back to me. Okay, I'm okay with that, but we're giving them more than what they paid. And again, it's a year where we have some problems. We've got some revenue problems.
Yeah, exactly. So he's trying to use this argument that doesn't work, Brian, because if I send my child to public school to get paid by the state, they're spending more than I'm putting in, right?
Yeah. Like you laid it out. If the child goes to a public school, then the state pays $9,000, $10,000, whatever, depending on the district. If they go take advantage of this program, then the state pays a maximum of $5,000. And in both cases, the parents of that child are taxpayers. Maybe they pay a lot of tax, maybe they pay a little bit of tax. But the goal here, I guess this is the heart of the issue. What is the goal here? What is the goal of the public school system? Is it to funnel money to teachers unions and administrators and public employees, or is it to educate children? If the goal were to educate children, then it wouldn't matter which direction you'd go. You'd want to allow families to take advantage of whatever works best for them and save money in the process. But if the goal is actually to funnel money to teachers unions and political allies, then you're going to see exactly, I think, what you see with Senator Cook in this hearing.
Yeah, you're going to see him fighting for this. One other interesting point here before we let you go is and everybody tries to play these games, but this bill may not have gotten, because it got printed in the Senate Education Committee. It may not have gotten printed had it gone to a different committee. And that's kind of like, I think, where Senator Tammy Nichols was going with her line of questioning. Let's watch her question here.
Comes in a few ways, and one of them is a technicality, and I don't know how this works just because of past experiences that we've had, but this seems to be in a section of code that is a tax code and not necessarily an education section of code. And I know that there's been a lot of discussion in the past on tax bills are supposed to start over on the other side. And so I was just curious, does this stay? I mean, this is tax code 63. So does this stay in education, or does it or is it really a tax bill that we're actually looking at here? So if you can address that first, and then I have a follow-up question after that.
Okay. You good with that? All right.
I can address it, or you can.
Oh,
either
go
way.
ahead. You're fine.
This is a print hearing, so you can introduce basically here. Where it goes from here will be determined for the full hearing, but this is a print hearing.
Okay, thank you, Mr.
Okay, so yeah, for what it's worth.
As Senator Nichols pointed out, the parental choice tax credit, and this was deliberate by the crafters of the bill, it is not in the section of state code that deals with public schools or education. It's in the section of state code that deals with taxes. And the whole point was to make sure that this gives maximal control to parents. They can claim the parental choice tax credit for non-public students the same way that we claim the grocery tax credit for anybody who lives in our homes. There's no oversight from the Department of Education. They're not going to come in there and audit schools or audit homeschool students to make sure they're teaching the right things, because that was a big concern. If you're going to let parents make the choice, then you need to let them make the choice. And so it's in the tax credit section of code. And Senator Cook knows this, and Chairman Lent knows this. But the tax commission, or the tax committee, the Revenue and Taxation Committee, or local government taxation on the Senate side, passed House Bill 93 last year. And so they would likely not pass a bill to handicap it before it's even gotten off the ground. So instead, he takes it to a much more friendly committee. The final vote to send it to print was 6-3. The three in opposition, Carlson, Nichols, and Zito, voted for the tax credit last year. The 6 who voted to print it, they voted against it. So this is a naked attempt to undo what the legislature did last year.
Yeah, it's very clear. All right, Brian, where can people follow you and keep track of your work today?
At Brian Allman on Twitter. I'll be posting throughout the day, and I'm still working on some stuff over at gemstatechronicle.com. Go there to learn about all your elected officials, whether they're doing what you want or not.
Yes, or not. Thanks, Brian. We'll check in with you. We'll see you tomorrow.
All right, see you tomorrow.